I know what you're thinking. Why did I turn my basement wall into a giant checkers board? Because it had to be done. That's why. But on a serious note, today I actually have two inspirations for the word that God has given me, and it'll probably challenge me both editing wise and storytelling wise. But hopefully, and I'm sure he will. Hopefully, the Holy Spirit will make it make sense, like he always does. So, for our first story, in the 1940s, Disney decided they wanted to start releasing comics. Most notably, Donald Duck comics. So they hired a bunch of these artists to write and illustrate these comics. However, the catch is that this all had to be done anonymously. No one was given any credit for their work. So Disney published all of these comics, and they actually became quite popular. Most notably, one artist became quite popular. Yes, even though I just said that all this work was done anonymously, you could not tell who created which comic. One man's work was so recognizable, so distinguishable, and stood so far above the rest that his fans started calling him the Good Duck Artist. Yet, even though his work was so beloved, he stayed anonymous for nearly 20 years. In fact, if it wasn't for his fans actively seeking him out, we may have never learned his true identity. But now I can tell you with confidence the man behind the Good Duck Artist was a man named Carl Barks, a former Disney employee who was hired by Disney to create these comics from his own household. And the interesting part is that Barks had no idea how popular his comics really were. You see, he was only given 3 letters of fan mail, and 2 of them were complaints. So if it wasn't for his fans and being so devoted to looking for him, we he may have never realized how popular and impactful he really was. And the reason why I wanted to bring up the story is because it's made me realize that impact and inspiration are invisible, meaning you don't always see what's impacting you or who you're impacting. If no one came up to you and said, "Hey, what you did really inspired me," or "I look up to you, you're a role model," you would have no idea who you're impacting. And we're all impacting someone, especially as Christians, because the more that we mature in our faith, the more that newer believers will look at us as imitators of Christ to set an example of a godly lifestyle to them. And in that same vein, non believers will look at us as ambassadors of Christ to show them who Christ is and what he represents. Now, even though Barks didn't realize how popular his comics were, he still put his best work forward. He gave he gave it his best efforts, no matter who was reading them or how many people were reading them. If we were to realize how many people were actually watching us, would that be a wake up call? Would it make us second guess our actions? Do our actions reflect Christ and his love for us? Or would they lead newer believers astray? Would they reaffirm the actions of non believers and give them confidence about their current lifestyle, even though they're living in sin? Actions speak louder than words, and our actions can either lead people towards Christ or away from him. And I don't say this to promote outwardly righteousness, but sometimes to identify the problems that are happening on the inside, we have to take a look at how our actions are being viewed on the outside. Because that can be a sign that the world's having a bigger impact on us than we are having on the world. Romans 12 tells us do not be conformed by the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of our minds. You see, the world's always going to try to push us back to being our former selves, push us back into sin, make us try to make us fit into the status quo that we formerly repented of. And trying to fight against that, trying to fight against the world's influence and impact, it's going to feel like trying to swim against the current. And if we're not always on guard and we're caught slacking, the world will just overwhelm us and push us backwards and backwards and backwards if we are not careful. One of the ways that the world can impact you, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because this isn't my main talking point, but secular media, pop culture. Don't get me wrong. You have the freedom to watch, read, and listen to anything. But not everything is beneficial, not everything is constructive. Especially whenever the main goal of any type of artist is to make you feel how they want you to feel, to think what they want you to think, to see what they want you to see. Their main goal is to make an impact on you. And they can plant the wrong ideas in your head if you're not careful. For example, in high school, I started listening to battle rap. That was my introduction to secular music, and I actually really liked it. I even started freestyling in my head. But what I noticed whenever I was doing that was I was using a lot more cuss words, and I was rapping about doing crimes and other ungodly activities that I didn't stand for. Because that's what they were talking about in battle rap. And that's what I was digesting. And I had to catch on like, wait, this isn't me. So I stopped listening to battle rap and any secular music because it was becoming poison to my mind. And if I was not careful, it would become poison to my mouth and poison to my heart. So I just wanted to say, use discernment in any pop culture because it matters more than you think. And it can be very destructive to your faith. However, the main way that the world tries to impact us is simply through the people around us, our family, friends, co-workers, even random strangers. Whenever everyone's doing the exact same things in the exact same ways, it causes a pressure on us Christians to follow in that same path. And I'm not talking about pressure as in like peer pressure where someone's trying to talk us into drinking or what's not. What I am talking about is letting the actions and behavior of other people lead our actions and lead our behaviors instead of letting God lead us. What I am talking about is us being complacent in God's command for us to love on people. What I am talking about is us being indifferent in our duty and being a light unto this world of darkness, but rather hiding our light before others. Instead, we choose to stand still in our faith, not moving forwards. But, like I said before, this world's always pushing back on us. So if we are not actively zealous in loving other people, if we are not actively zealous in following God's command for us, this world will push us backwards in our faith. That's why it's important for us to love on people not only for the sake in spreading the faith, but also in protecting our own faith. That's why it's important for us to be more impactful on the world than the world's being impact on us. And the easiest way that we can do that is, as I've indicated before, is by keeping God's two greatest commands for us: to love God first and then love each other. love other people, love them as God has loved us. That's all it takes to make an impact in this world. A couple of years ago, I came across two creators on YouTube that I never thought I would ever come across, but they showed me three different ways that love and kindness can make a world of a difference. The two creators that I'm talking about here are Coop's Collection and Beer Dad Cards, both of which are Pokemon card vendors. That's their whole thing. They sell Pokemon cards. On paper, not something special or interesting, really, but their claim to fame is that they give out free or discounted cards to little kids. That's a big thing, especially in the Pokemon card community, because there's lots of scammers and scalpers. It's not all people, or even most, but there's lots out there who look to take advantage of people, especially kids, trying to buy Pokemon cards. So what I like about what Coop and Beer Dad do is they found a way to be generous in a place where there's lots of greed, to be kind in a community that really needed it. Are we looking for ways to be kind in our own life? Are we looking to be a light in a place where there's lots of darkness? Because that's where we are needed most. Are we actively searching and praying for opportunities to be loving and to show God's love to people? Are we looking for that opportunity? Because that has to be our mindset, to be proactive and showing love, because we are constantly being loved. And people will respond to that love. Another thing that I like about Coop and Beer Dads is that they stream themselves while they're vending. And people will donate to them so that they can give out more free cards. They're actively buying cards for kids that they don't even know through a screen because they are inspired by what Beer Dad and Coop are doing for that community. Love and kindness are contagious. They're infectious. And they will spread like wildfire. Sometimes it just takes someone to light the spark. It just takes someone showing them that there's another way, there's a better way of doing things. And that's Christ. He is that way. His love is the way. We just have to show them that. And that can actively plant seeds of faith. And the last thing that I'll say about Coop and Beer Dad is that a large amount of their audience doesn't even collect Pokemon cards. A big portion of them probably doesn't care about Pokemon at all. However, there's also a large amount of people who through watching their videos got inspired to start collecting because they were inspired by Coops and Beer Dad's kindness, their genuineness, their wholesomeness. How cool would that be to know that your actions and the love that you have shown inspired someone to go to church or to learn more about God? When when people see something different in you, they want to know what makes you different. It's happened to me multiple times. People would come up to me to the point I don't have to start the conversation about God because they will come to me asking me, Jared, why are you so happy all the time? Why don't you cuss? And why don't you vape? Why do you do this? Why don't you do that? And I get the opportunity to witness to them. Love on people. That's all you have to do. And no, don't neglect to do the small things. Small things are very important because God can plant seeds that you don't even see, even in the small things. I credit so much of my faith to my dad. And anytime someone asked him about his faith, he made sure to credit one man that I believe he only met once in a brief interaction. When my dad was 20 years old, he was out drinking, and on his way home, drove off the side of the road, got a flat tire. Lucky for him, a guy was nearby and was kind enough to give him a ride home. On the way home, he tries to witness to my dad, but my dad was drunk. He wasn't having it. Nonetheless, he drops my dad off at his house, and he gives my dad a card to his church, a church called Cornerstone, I believe. A few weeks later, my dad decides to check this church out, and it seems to go pretty well. He even developed a small relationship with the pastor there at the time, and they had some deep conversations about God. Yet, not too long after, seemed to all be fruitless because dad stopped going to church, continued to live a sinful lifestyle. Years go by, he gets married, has 4 kids. My mom starts going to church, a different church called Wellspring, and my dad is still out partying, drinking, all that jazz. Then, about 10 years after that interaction on the side of the road, my dad starts having these episodes on the right side of his body where he says his body just goes stupid. It stops functioning properly. And he has no idea what's going on. So he goes to doctors. They have no idea what's going on. They suggest going to neurologists, but no one can quite figure out what's going on with my dad. So my mom writes his name on the prayer list at her church that my dad still hasn't gone to yet. And the pastor at Wellspring reads through this prayer list, stops immediately, and says, "Hey, does anyone know where this man lives? I need to go see him right now." So a family friend points him in the right direction and brings him to our house. And that pastor meets my dad for the second time. He was the same pastor at Cornerstone 10 years ago that tried to talk to my dad about God. So he prays for my dad, and my dad had no more episodes after that. He was fully healed. Obviously, this sparks his curiosity, and he starts going to church again. And he was still doing kegs and partying, and and he still had to go through some things before he could fully give his life to God. But I truly do believe it was through that rekindled relationship with our pastor that would ultimately lead my dad to getting saved, and then later lead me to getting saved, and lead my dad to being an elder at our church where he ministered to everybody at our church. All because one man was kind enough to stop and give my dad a ride home and try to witness to him. Look for any opportunity to love on someone. Look for any opportunity to make an impact. Do not waste any opportunity that God gives you.